Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Football Friday. We're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Fired up to be here. Got Jacob, Beck, and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Appreciate you making us a part of your Friday. Hope that work week's in the rearview mirror. If not, we will get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Matt Musso coming up with AFR. Cade Wasson got Louisiana Prep preview a little bit later, and Catholic High and Carr tonight from the West Bank. Should be a big one in South Louisiana. And then it's a big weekend in football and college football as well. We'll get you ready for Saints and Giants up there in New Jersey, and just a lot going on with LSU, including LSU basketball at Florida against Florida Gulf Coast in the PMAC. We'll certainly talk about that. Preston Guy along in 15 minutes to talk about LSU football. Kind of as the regular season is wrapped up, signing days in the rearview mirror, portal season upon us. So plenty to get to with Preston here coming up in 15 minutes. We'll start the same way we start every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Over the last 24 hours, it's become apparent to me that the number one need for this LSU football program as we start to look to 2025 is pass catchers. And specifically right now, wide receivers. They do need a tight end, and we'll talk about that. But you've got a couple of guys there who can play the position. You need a different skill set. That's on the back burner for right now. I'm talking wide receivers. And we briefly talked about this yesterday. We have found out over the last 3 days that you have lost C.J. Daniels. You knew you were going to lose Kyron Lacey. And you now look up at Shelton Sampson is gone, and you see that Cal Parker's coming off an injury. And you kind of look around, you're going, okay, Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker, gotcha. But you've got guys there who are your only productive returning players who are kind of the same. Anderson, Thomas, Parker, they're all 6 feet or under. They're all pretty quick, pretty shifty, pretty fast. I would say Anderson's the shiftiest. Thomas is the fastest. Kyle Parker's probably the best route runner. But none of those guys are going to be significant vertical threats routinely. None of those guys are going to jump up and high point the football often in the red zone. You need a dude. You need Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You need a number one dude. And that's obvious. And I think unless Garrett Nussmeier bolts, if he goes to the draft or enters the transfer portal, which is always possible, I think he's going to stay, but it's always possible. Unless he bolts, this becomes the number one need to me. And that is going to be the litmus test for how aggressive LSU is allowed to be in this era. I don't know for sure what has happened in every single instance of transfer portal recruiting and high school recruiting. I don't know exactly what happened with Jakeem Stewart. I don't know exactly what happened with Harlem Berry. I don't know exactly what happened with DeCorian Moore. I don't know exactly what happened with DJ Pickett. Like, I can't point to every example and know exactly how things came together. But we can read the tea leaves and feel like either LSU was just flat out bid because they couldn't keep up with some of these bids, or LSU played it a little bit more conservatively to save funds for elsewhere once X player's dollar amount got above where they were comfortable with. I don't know. But we have heard from Brian Kelly, from folks who talk to those in the collective world, LSU is going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. Okay, well, if you tell me that, this is the position where you got to go get aggressive. And if LSU comes back a little bit empty-handed at wide receiver, that's not going to be because they didn't see a need. That's going to be because they couldn't. And that'll be the litmus test, in my opinion. That's the position I'm looking at. Yes, They need help at other places. You need an offensive lineman. You need a quarterback. It's not a starting quarterback. So you're not getting into the Cam Ward bidding process. You're talking about going to the top of the list at wide receiver because that's where LSU's got to be. And that's the water I think LSU can swim in with wide receivers. Why? Because the pitch is pretty damn good. If you look at the NFL right now and you see the top 2 wide receivers in yards this season, that's Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Now, this staff did not coach those players, but it certainly doesn't hurt. They're about to be the highest 2 paid wide receivers in the history of the National Football League. Back up to the guys that did play for this staff. Malik Neighbors leads rookies in receiving yards this year in terms of yards per game. He's been hurt a little bit. And by the way, his quarterback clan is pathetic. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito. And Malik Neighbors is still leading rookies in receiving yards per game. Brian Thomas is 4th on that list. So you look at getting guys into the NFL, nobody's got a better cast of characters than LSU. Alabama's is really good. Ohio State's is really good. USC's got a good stake to that claim. But LSU's is right there with anybody. You look at the ability to step in and play, you got it. LSU has had better than 55% of its receiving yards and catches walk out the door here. You got to include Josh Williams there and Mason Taylor there, not necessarily wide receivers, but you've got a lot of footballs to be caught. And oh, by the way, as of this moment, the quarterback, one of the best returning in the country. I didn't say the best. I don't know. I didn't say he was a guaranteed first-round draft pick. I didn't say he was going to win the Heisman Trophy. But Garrett Nussmeier, this year, in an offense that wasn't humming all year long, but that was pretty productive, finished in the top 2 in the SEC in just about every passing category there is. So you've got everything that a wide receiver could want here. A staff that can develop you, the ability to get to the field quickly, a quarterback already in place, the SEC, the best competition in the country. The only variable that I can't speak to directly here is money. And if LSU doesn't land one of the top wide receivers in the transfer portal, then that's a bad sign of where LSU sits in this landscape of college football. I have made the comment that I think LSU is going to have a lot of trouble in this landscape getting the number 1 player in the nation from well outside of this footprint. Bryce Underwood's going to be hard for LSU to get no matter what, because you're essentially going to have to outbid everybody at that point, and having to outbid everybody is tough. But as long as you can be competitive and then offer everything else that comes with LSU, which is what I think happened with DJ Pickett and Harlem Berry and Carius Kern, I think that's what happened with those guys. Well, you can swim in those waters. And we've been told that LSU's got cash ready to go, and that they've had money freed up from Bryce Underwood and freed up from DeCorian Moore and freed up from Jakeem Stewart, freed up from Cade Phillips. Okay, well, it's free. Here's where it's got to go. Again, until Garrett Nussmeier tells me he's leaving, this is the number 1 goal for me. They got to get some other things. But I don't believe that LSU is going to field a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line next year. That's my contention as we sit here on December the 6th. I think they can put together a good offensive line. I think they have a good offensive line coach. I think they've got some young talent, and I think they're going to go to the transfer portal and kind of try to see what they can cobble together there. But my gut tells me that LSU's best aspect of its offense next year is probably going to be in the air with Garrett Nussmeier. So you need to make sure that that area of your team is stocked with the best talent you can put together. And there are going to be a lot of guys in the transfer portal. I talked about these names yesterday, but we'll kind of cycle through some of the guys who have gone in the transfer portal over the years that these are the types of players you got to get. C.J. Daniels is a heck of a player. I think he's a really good player. I think he'd be good for LSU if he came back next year. I think he's going to make an NFL roster. But I'm talking about Jamison Williams, who went in the first round, Ohio State to Bama. I'm talking about Jermaine Burton from Georgia to Bama, who made a huge impact there. I'm talking about Isaiah Bond from Alabama to Texas, who's playing for an SEC championship this week. Keon Coleman from Mississippi State, or Michigan State, down to Florida State. Becomes a high draft pick and plays on an unbeaten team. I'm talking about those kind of guys. Jordan Addison wins the Biletnikoff at Pitt, goes to USC. Like, that's the kind of playmaker that's available almost every year. I'm also not telling you that it has to be from the elite of the elite. You can find great players if your scouting and evaluation is correct. Trey Harris came from Louisiana Tech, and he was the best receiver in the country this year. Just couldn't get on the field. I would even go as far as to say, and some of you are going to shake your head at this, I watched this guy play a lot this year. He's really good. I would take him on next year's LSU roster like that. Andrew Armstrong at Arkansas finished 4th in the country in receiving yards per game. He had over 100 yards per game receiving for an Arkansas offense that was good at some points, but not good. I mean, LSU shut him down. They had Taylon Green pulling the trigger. They found him at Texas A&M Commerce, okay? Missouri found the SEC's leading rusher at a D3 school 2 years ago. So I'm not as concerned with exactly what school he comes from. I'm not telling you you can only recruit receivers that went to USC, Ohio State, Clemson, Bama, and Miami. Like, just get the right one. Maybe get the right two. And this, to me, as I sit here right now, lots of things can change over the next 2 weeks. We all know that. But as I sit here right now, this is the litmus test for how well LSU can play ball. This signing class, in my opinion, is good. You had some defections late, but it's good. You've got to hit some home runs in the transfer portal if you want to be competitive next year. And it's not every single year that you've got a second-year returning starting quarterback who's in his 5th year, who's a projected top 40 pick in the NFL draft. Is that fair with Nussmeier? I think it is. So if you want to make that into a championship contending team with the schedule that you've got to play next fall, you better find some playmakers, and you better spend some money on it. I don't need any, it got a little bit too rich for our blood. No, sorry. At this point, if the boosters and the collective have put the money in there and said, okay, go use it, you use that money and you go get a wide receiver. This is different than we've ever spoken about collegiate athletics before. I've never had this conversation. We're having it now because I'm looking at this wide receiver group. I'm looking at the quarterback. I'm looking at what's in the portal every single year. I'm looking at what LSU has had happen to it on the recruiting trail for the last 2 years, and I'm going, change it. That's got to happen for this team at that position in the next 3 weeks. I've got a story up at LouisianaSports.net right now that's got some players that have already gone to the transfer portal. You've got Berrien Brown, who went in from Kentucky, who was a former 4-star recruit that set some kick return records. I've got Dane Key from Kentucky as well, as 6'3" and caught a bunch of balls in a terrible offense. Micah Hudson was a 5-star, the first one to ever sign with Texas Tech. He's already in the portal. Concepcion from North Carolina State is in there. There'll be dozens more. Go get one. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Football Friday. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. When we come back, Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, talking LSU football on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. When you think Genesis of Baton Rouge, you should think luxury. When you think luxury, you don't have to think, can't afford that. I know there are some luxury brands that pop into your head from time to time when you think about that type of vehicle. Genesis should as well, and it's at a reasonable price. Look, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, 3 years complimentary maintenance. The entire line was on the IIHA top safety picks list. Some were top safety picks plus. Your buying experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge is going to be phenomenal. You're not going to feel like a customer. You're going to feel like a guest. Their brand ambassador is going to get you behind the wheel of one of those Genesis, and you'll understand what the fuss is all about. It's a fantastic line of vehicles. On Airline Highway near Pico, just across from Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, and every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Every Friday show brought brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Great time of year to eat some delicious crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp. Also, good time to hammer home a po' boy, filling, wholesome, this chilly weather. If you're looking for a po' boy here in Baton Rouge, Cork's is a fantastic one. They got your overstuffed shrimp po' boy, catfish po' boy as well. Get you some crispy shoestring fries, some hush puppies, honey butter roll. It's all fantastic. Get some beignet bites on the way out as well, a little sweet treat. They're on Jefferson on Government between Foster and Jefferson. You can find the menu online, corksfishandshrimp.com. Preston Guy, tigerbait.com, with us every single Friday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Joins us now. Preston, how are you?
Hunt, how's it going?
It's going all right. It's a little busy, a little hectic. The old transfer portal signing day and all that happening, but I know y'all are all over it as well at tigerbait.com. Let's go back to Oklahoma before we move forward into some roster development stuff. Any overarching takeaways from LSU winning their last two ball games?
I think that gives you an opportunity to build some positive momentum for the program perception-wise. Because, the difference between 8-4 and 7-5, there is a difference perception-wise. 8-4 is just kind of a mediocre season. Obviously, you have that big egg in your face from missing the playoffs and getting blown out by Bama. But, when you start getting into 6-6, 7-5 territory, it looks pretty bad. And you have a chance to win a ninth game in the bowl game, which, it's probably a 50-50 chance you play a team without a coach nowadays in the bowl game. So as long as Brian Kelly doesn't bolt anywhere, you have a good chance to win that, go 9-4. And, that doesn't look nearly as bad on paper as a season like 7-5, 6-6 would have.
What did you think about Brian Kelly's post-game press conference? Taking receipts, we'll see you in the national championship. What did you make of all that?
Yeah, he came with some fire in that, and he came with some more fire in the signing day press conference.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is I think that's reflective of a lot of what I'm hearing, that LSU is going to be investing more in this roster. I think there's a lot of confidence, not just in Brian Kelly, but a lot of people behind the scenes with the program, that this roster will be much better next year. So I think that it echoes what they signed in this recruiting class, although you missed out on some big fish, but they're also planning on getting a lot more aggressive than they were a year ago in the portal. So I think I think it just echoes confidence of what's going on behind the scenes.
Let's talk about signing day. Obviously, it's my contention that I'm just going to react to everything once the ink dries. Don't give me commits and decommits and 11th hour departures and flips and that whole deal. Just what does it look like at the end? Now that you can see it kind of at the end, what do you think?
It's a pretty good class. I think had you not ever landed a commitment from Bryce Underwood and Jakeem Stewart had stayed in 2026,
yeah.
And that layered in with if DeCorian Moore had just decided to go to Oregon from the get-go, I think people would feel a lot better about this class. They'd be pretty excited, and they'd be like, well, what the heck? Why didn't you recruit a quarterback? But, given that you don't even have a quarterback at all, that's your big abject. I don't even want to call it a failure, because the coaching staff did their job to land a quarterback and would have, and a billionaire came in and thwarted their efforts. And it was I think it was unexpected even from Michigan's front until, late down the process, until basically November. So outside of that, I think you'd be looking at a pretty good class. You're talking about you're bringing in the best DB in the country in DJ Pickett, bringing in the best running back in the country, and you're likely bringing in the best offensive line class in the country. So you talk about addressing needs. You're going to have the best running back stable that Brian Kelly's had at LSU next year. And O-line, you need to rebuild in a big way. And you're bringing in all the guys to do it. And you really need a DB. And you would have liked to keep Cade Phillips, no doubt. But DJ Pickett's really the one you didn't want to lose. So I'm good. But ultimately, from the fans, look, I like to live in reality. And the reality is fans are going to sit here for years to come and think about what could have been. This is going to be up there with 5 for 5 day for LSU fans. But just like that 2014 class, it's going to end up being pretty good.
And look, 5 for 5, we talk about this all the time. LSU only went 2 for 5. They got the 2 All-Americans and first-round picks, and the other 3 guys fizzled out and are nowhere to be to be heard from again. So you never truly know if Bryce Underwood is Trevor Lawrence or Jameis Winston and wins a national championship and is competing for Heisman trophies or wins one, then it's going to be a sick burn. If he's DJU, then oh well.
The way I look at it, Hunt, with recruiting, I believe I've done the numbers. A 5-star recruit, I think it's 40% chance of getting drafted in the NFL, right? And that's, probably not as good as you would think, but that's talent evaluation. The difference is a 3-star recruit's going to have about a 1% chance of getting drafted, and a 4-star is going to be, I think it's something like 15%, right? So it's really, no matter who you sign, you're rolling the die. It's just about what kind of die you're rolling when it comes to these talent evaluators. Do you roll the 3-sided die or 6-sided die or the 20-sided die? And what are your odds of getting a guy that you need? So absolutely you can. It does depend on which ones and how well you do it and how good of a fit and all that. All that stuff still matters, but I absolutely still look at it as important to bring in as many chances of getting that elite prospect as you can is always a good thing.
No question about it. Mason Taylor and Will Campbell, different elite prospects, one a 5-star, one a 3 or 4, depending on where you were looking, but elite players in college football, and they'll be moving on. No surprise either spot there for you?
No, I don't think very many people were counting on either of them to come back. In fact, from what I'm talking about, LSU, they have to manage funds. They didn't even have a budget to count on either of those guys returning. So most of what we've seen in the portal, not surprising. C.J. Daniels is a surprise. It certainly is one that's going to hurt. But, there will be other players in the portal. I certainly think they're looking to upgrade their wide receiver spot in the portal, especially considering this wide receiver class now with losing Meadows and DeCorian Moore months ago. They don't really bring in a super highly touted guy. They bring in some guys they think are good fits and cultural, and they they love these guys, Jace Thomas, and all, but it isn't like you're bringing in a 5-star plug-and-play guy.
Yeah, no question. So that's why my opening segment, I don't know if you caught it there, I said, look, we've heard that LSU didn't quite want to spend there, whether it's the portal last year or this signing class, and I get all that. You got to manage funds when they're finite. I'm not really interested in hearing about that with wide receiver here. If you've got Garrett Nussmeier coming back and you don't have to go buy a quarterback, like you can't go to war with Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker, and Xavier Thomas all at 5'11" and slot guys. Like, you better go get the dude in the transfer portal. That's going to be my litmus test for where this team is NIL wise, depending on what wide receiver shows up here.
Yeah, and my understanding is a year ago they were hesitant to go in the portal, but between coaches going for the green light, saying we got to build a team to win now, they feel the pressure. And between donor bases being more motivated than they were a year ago, I fully expect LSU to be more aggressive in the portal than they were. I'm also told, those funds for Bryce Underwood, those are available.
Yeah,
those are not something that a lot of people, and in fact, even I was speculating that was probably given, for Bryce Underwood. Well, it wasn't exactly just for Bryce Underwood. They have that money, so they're going to use that to get aggressive and build a team that's ready to compete next year.
After assuming that Garrett Nussmeier stays, because we all understand if he moves, then you've got to go shopping in a big way there. But if he stays, where else are you looking for immediate impact in a big way in the transfer portal outside of wide receiver?
Offensive line.
Yeah.
Look, we talked about what a great offensive line class. Let's say you land 2 true freshmen that are ready to go, freshman All-American, and that's about as good as it gets. You got Emory Jones and Will Campbell. What was that, 3 years ago? That was elite. That's still not good enough because you're losing. You could lose Emory Jones still. He hadn't made an announcement, but we'll see. And your reps, you might be looking for a center based on the reps you got out of DJ Chester. Paul Mabinga started ugly, finished stronger throughout the season. Is he truly ready to be a starter? There's some question marks there. You're losing 2 interior linemen. there's a real possibility, Hunt, that you are looking for 5 new starters next year. Now, more than likely than 5 is you're probably going to be somewhere in that 4 to 3 range, but it is certainly a possibility. So O-line, I think you have to go to the portal and get aggressive with that.
Let's talk about that, because if it's 5 and you essentially kick Chester Mabenga to the curb there and Jones doesn't come back, like that spells disaster to me. If you've had Brad Davis bring in these classes of 4 and 5 star players and you've got 5 new starters, unless you're talking about Cohen Eccles and Weston Davis and Tyree Adams taking over, and then you go get 2 portal guys. But it seems like that right now Chester and Mabenga are ahead of those guys. So
yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. Losing 5 offensive line starters is your worst case scenario, no doubt. Unless there's maybe an argument that, okay, they decided to stick with Chester because they couldn't find a center.
Yeah.
So, they had to replace 4, but they really wanted to replace 5 and didn't. Hunt, that's not the position you want to be in. And it's tough to find guys in the portal, no matter how aggressive you are. And, yeah, you're getting aggressive, but so's a bunch of schools in the portal. And a lot of these guys really are just looking for the highest bidder. They don't particularly care about the other factors. That's just how this works sometimes. So, no, it's not a good situation that they're dealing with the offensive line, but all I can tell you is that the LSU coaching staff is aware of the challenge they're facing, and from what I understand, there's confidence behind the scenes that they're better equipped to weather that storm than they've been.
Last one here. I'm not sure if you saw this, but I'm guessing you did. Solomon Thomas at his press conference yesterday after announcing he was going to LSU made the comment, I wish I could have gone to Florida State. What do you make of that in this era of college football?
Well, he's from Florida, and the thing to understand here, there's some health issues of his mother. And I think what the sentiment that, I gathered from that and talking to people is that, he wishes his mom wouldn't have to travel to go see him play in Louisiana. Is kind of what he meant by that. And, they just were overwhelmed that they really felt LSU was the best fit for him. And it wasn't necessarily a super highest bidder situation. It's that he had a lot of faith in Brad Davis and what Brian Kelly's been able to do with offensive linemen, and it was impressed with the development of players. So he felt that this was just overwhelmingly the best fit for his future. So did his mother, and they're just sad that she's going to have to travel and continually to deal with health issues. That's what I'm understanding he meant by that.
Interesting. I didn't have that context, so I very much appreciate that. Preston, thanks for the time, man. Have a great weekend.
You too, Hunt. See you soon.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. You can catch him every Monday on YouTube. TigerBait.com channel. He's with us every Friday. For those that missed that, Solomon Thomas, who's the 5-star that LSU flipped, Preston added some context there that I wasn't aware of. But if you missed this, he committed to Florida State for a year, and their offense was literally the worst in the country entering the second to last weekend. They had to score a bunch of points on a G5 team to get out of the bottom of the barrel offensively. And Alex Atkins was calling their plays and was the offensive line coach, and they fired him. And that was his guy. So that opens up. Florida State doesn't have an offensive line coach, and he's kind of looking around going, well, I've got to take some visits. So he visited Florida, visited LSU. I think he knocked on Miami's door as well. And LSU emerged as the leader of that group post-Florida State. And he commits to LSU. At his ceremony, he's got a camera in front of him, and he says, the quote comes out, I wish I could have gone to Florida State. I didn't realize the thing about his mom. I think that likely to me, and this is, I want to be very clear, this is just me reading tea leaves and guessing. Certainly never talked to Solomon Thomas, don't know anything from LSU's perspective. This is a pure guess from a talking head on the radio. Feels like, well, I can't really go there because I kind of wanted to play for him, and he's not there. I don't even know who my position coach is going to be. Well, I better look around. Okay, I know my position coach is going to be Brad Davis at LSU, and I have a really good relationship with him. This NIL offer is very nice. This is the next best thing for me right now. Is kind of the way that it sounded to me. I will certainly monitor Solomon Thomas's development his first year, and I'll see who hires Alex Atkins. because obviously, I mean, look, there's a real chance that Florida could lose a former 4-star cornerback who could transfer to LSU because Corey Raymond is now the position coach at LSU, and he was at Florida where the players signed. So you got to realize that those relationships are never gonna end. It used to be, a guy signs elsewhere, you kind of cut ties, wish you all the best. Better stay in contact now because you never know when that guy could come right back around the corner. So for me, watching if Solomon Thomas wants to end up where Alex Atkins is, depending on where that is interesting to watch for sure. But LSU will certainly take a 5-star talent on the offensive line if they can get it. We come back, get you ready for the NFL slate coming up on Sunday. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Baton Rouge, your game day headquarters. LSU is not playing any football tomorrow, but there's a lot of football to watch. Certainly a lot of football to watch on Sunday. No better spot to watch than Baton Rouge inside the ESPN Sportsbook. And you watch all the games on their giant screen TVs. They got these huge screens that they can break up into different games. You can watch 4 or 5 games at once. It's a fantastic viewing experience. And you can tackle the area's best game day food and beverages with all your friends. They got group seating. They got individual seating as well. So get in on all the football action, basketball action this winter with Penn Play and ESPN Bet. Penn's online sportsbook is now live in Louisiana. Score big this season at Baton Rouge. However you want to play. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 for help.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
In about an hour, I'll pick LSU. No, LSU won't be playing. I will pick Saints and Giants on Sunday. We'll get a breakdown of that game.
You got to pick LSU Florida Gulf Coast, though, huh?
I don't have to pick that. I probably won't. I have some riveting statistics on Dunk City. Can't remember what they're the Eagles of some sort.
The Florida Gulf Coast Eagles, I believe.
Is it just Eagles?
Maybe so. Yeah, I think
there's Cinderella games every year in the tournament, but some runs live longer than others. Dunk City was an indelible mark. I mean, Steph Curry is probably the best. Those early Gonzaga runs were really good, and Steph with Davidson was incredible to watch. But Dunk City just like throwing down on people's heads. Andy Enfield coaching them up. That was a really good week.
It was. The Eagles. They are the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would have even known that college existed.
I probably wouldn't have either.
To that week.
No, probably not.
They were good. Turned Andy Enfield even richer than he was. Is he the one that had a bunch of money and went to coach? Or was that somebody else that went and coached UCLA?
I think it was him. I think he was like an attorney or something, or I'm not sure what he was doing.
Well, they were dunking on people, that's for sure. We'll talk about Dunk City. LSU plays them Sunday at 2, coming up in the second hour. But let's get you ready for Sunday in the National Football League. All right, Tier 4 is where we start. This is the bad football. Got 2 games in this one. AFC South, Jags at Titans. Trevor Lawrence is on injured reserve, so Mac Jones has got a few weeks to not play very well. The Jags have lost 9 straight games on the road. That's the most in the National Football League. The only intrigue here, which might pull it out of Tier 4, the number 1 pick, very much in play for these 2 squads. So we'll see how that one shakes out.
Who wants to lose more?
In Nashville. Everybody should want to lose. The Panthers are at the Eagles. This is Tier 4 because it's a good team against a very not good team. The Panthers, in fact, are the worst run defense in the NFL. Saquon leads the NFL in rushing yards. I am upset about this game because I'm in the fantasy playoffs next week, and I have Saquon Barkley. This is the game I needed in my playoffs. Of course, my fantasy team, Baton Rouge's Eeyore, is the name of that fantasy team. Thanks to Tiger Droppings for giving me that label. It's not good for Eeyore to have this game this week. I need it next week.
Not good.
That's all right. But if the Panthers lose, they're eliminated from the playoffs, so they really need to win this game to stay in the race. Both teams have hit the over in their last 4 games. Tier 3, Jets are at the Dolphins. Aaron Rodgers, 34 consecutive starts without throwing for 300 yards. And Tua has never lost to the Jets. This game could have some points, maybe. It's not good. The Browns are at the Steelers. Myles Garrett absolutely wrecked the Steelers in their first meeting between these 2 teams. He had 3 sacks and a forced fumble in the first half of that game. The Browns have not swept the Steelers since 1988. I was born in 1988, so that's been a minute. The Raiders are at the Bucks. Brock Bowers needs 3 catches to break the rookie tight end record for receptions in a rookie season. That was set last year by Sam Laporta. The Bucks move into first place with a win and a Falcons loss. And the last one in Tier 3, the Bears are at the 49ers. Caleb Williams, incidentally, 232 throws consecutively without an interception. That is the longest by a rookie in NFL history. Still, the Bears have lost 6 straight games. They fired Matt Eberflus. How bad was Matt Eberflus doing? Check this out. The Bears are the first team since at least 1933. They don't go back any further than that. To lose 6 straight games without having multiple turnovers in any of the games. That's just atrocious football. Like, you're not like giving anybody the game. You just can't do anything. Awful, awful, awful in Chicago. All right, up to Tier 2. We got 4 games left, 2 in Tier 2, 2 in Tier 1. This is the best football of the NFL weekend. The Falcons are at the Vikings. Kirk Cousins has turned into a pumpkin here. He has thrown 6 interceptions in his last 3 games. He's the first quarterback with 6 picks or more and 0 touchdowns over a 3-game span since Brian Hoyer in 2014. Woo! Meanwhile, the Vikings, they lead the NFL in interceptions, so trouble. The Bills are at the Rams. The Bills have won 7 straight games. 8 wins would be the second longest streak in franchise history for them. Matt Stafford and Josh Allen playing very well. They're the top 2 quarterbacks in the last 3 games in terms of QBR in the entire NFL. ESPN's analytics say with a win, the Bills have a 53% chance to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. With a loss, that drops by half, 26%. They really need to win this game in LA. In Tier 1, best football of Sunday, Seattle is at the Cardinals. ESPN Analytics says the winner is the NFC West favorite. These teams played 2 weeks ago. The Seahawks won 16-6 in Seattle. This one will be in the Valley of the Sun. And the last one, Sunday Night Football between the Chargers and the Chiefs. The Chargers 3-18 against the Chiefs since 2014. They have lost 6 in a row in this series. The Chiefs have won 14 straight one-score games. That is the longest streak in NFL history. I actually think that's a bad thing for the Chiefs. They're walking a high wire that is too tough, and that's going to hurt them, I think, in the playoffs. They need to start dominating people, and I don't know if they have it in them, but that's it for the National Football League coming up on Sunday. Jacob Beck, any of that pique your interest?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing AFR yesterday with Musso, and we did our what to watch, and my NFL game was the Jaguars and Titans hunt because
buddy,
it is a stinker, but it is a very important stinker because both of those teams are at the very bottom or the very top, if you will, in terms of the NFL, in terms of the draft order for next year. So,
you know who I'm pulling for in that game? I have a decision.
I'm going to guess you're pulling for the Titans.
I'm not. I'm pulling for the Jaguars.
Okay.
Because it's going to make me irrationally upset when the NFL moves that team to London. Because I realize the Jags don't draw well, and I realize there's plenty of a good argument to be made. Well, they don't really support their team, so get them out of there. But I believe there are thousands of people who love the Jaguars and who follow them all year long and love the tailgate and love to go to the games, and that's their favorite sports team.
Yep.
And to take that away from people drives me freaking nuts.
It does
so
suck when
I will
that
pull for
happens.
Jacksonville and hope that they can win a game and be a little bit more.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's better for them to lose and get the first pick. And
well,
then
they
maybe
always have the first pick.
That's true.
They took Walker from Georgia. They took Lawrence from Clemson. They always have the first pick.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to help. They had that one Bortles team. Where did that come from?
Oh yeah, well they made it to like the
they beat the breaks off Indiana. They beat the breaks off New England, and then they went up to Pittsburgh, and they were in that game. Maybe it was a flip of that. I can't remember. They played the Chiefs, I think.
They had really good defenses.
Yeah, it was incredible defense, and it was playoff Lenny, and they were giving them the ball. I think they may have beat the Steelers. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but they won a playoff game or two, and they got to the conference final. I know. I just don't know if they played the Chiefs. I can't remember, but I remember they were good because weirdly enough, this is stupid. There are some funny Jaguars fans that have a tailgate that are on Twitter.
I've seen that.
And I follow them. And so I get a lot of Jags updates on Sunday, and a lot of them are profanity-laced and very, very humorous and self-deprecating.
There was what was it? It was like the Jaguar lady or something. She went kind of viral. I don't remember. She was a Jaguars fan, and the local news, they always try to find the funny people and put them to go viral. I can't remember her story, but she was always popping up on social media. She was really funny.
One
I'll
guy
try to find
has
it.
champagne and cookies every time
Yeah.
they win, so he has to buy like one roll of cookies a year. They embrace kind of a trashy nature, taking jealous shots, and like the mascot Jackson DeVille's in the parking lot being malfeasant. It's humorous. I hope they stay in Jacksonville and don't go to London. We'll see. Come back. Kim Mulkey's team got a huge win last night. It was a dramatic win last night. We still got to talk LSU, Florida Gulf Coast, and championship weekend. We'll do all that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. You know by now that Mitchell Fisher and his team did our television installation, also did our audio work in our home. And Myers did something to the remote yesterday, and we could not figure it out because we're not very smart. And so my wife texted Mitchell and was like, hey, we got something going on. He logged in remotely and fixed it. I don't even know what he did, but it works now. And that's the kind of customer service that we've come to love from Mitchell Fisher and the team at Audio Video Security Solutions. They are a local company. You have the owner's cell phone number, and he's willing to help. And that's an incredible thing for us, a completely technologically inept family that uses technology a lot. If you're in our boat, or even if you're not, Audio Video Security Solutions is a fantastic company to work with your televisions, with your surround sound, with your entertainment system, with your security system, all those things that they can handle. They're local here in Baton Rouge. Here's Mitchell's cell phone number, 225-439-7920. Again, 225-439-7920. You can check them out online. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. It's at avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
SEC ACC challenge for the women last night. Stanford, of course, in the ACC, was playing LSU here in Baton Rouge. Stanford led early by 13 after one. They scored 28 in the first quarter, and they were leading by 2 at the half. And then they stretched that to 5 in the third quarter and stretched that up to 11 in the fourth quarter. And some folks started heading to the exits. LSU, of course, dramatically came back, tied it, got it to overtime, and won the game by 6 points. And Jacques Doucet of Channel 9 asked Kim Mulkey post-game, did you notice some folks were leaving?
Michaela, you're obviously focused on what's going on the floor. Did you notice that a lot of people left the game?
I did, and I took names. I won't see them in church Sunday because I'll be gone, but I'll catch them next Sunday. I saw it. Sure did.
Kim's not having it. I've never really gotten that either. I've the only time I can recall leaving a game because I was upset with the result and figured it was over, and LSU really had a chance to win the game. It happened one time that I can remember ever. It was Brandon Harris going into the Mississippi State game at home, and LSU had a Hail Mary to win it. We were watching in the parking lot on an RV lot. That's the only time I can recall leaving. And I, to an extent, understand the traffic angle on football because
Not basketball.
Basketball, there's just not a lot of traffic for a
there's not.
basketball game. And I just feel like if there's like 4 minutes left and you could theoretically throw a couple threes in and win the game, you've been sitting there for 2 hours anyway. You might as well catch the last 4 minutes. But hey, look, it's your time, it's your money. You can do whatever you want. I'm claiming I don't really get it. So LSU did come back and win it. I thought it was an incredibly gutsy effort. Michaela Williams is such a skilled scorer, and she didn't have the ball in her hands quite as much last year. Obviously, Angel's going to do a ton of that. Haley Van Lith was brought in to help with that. And then you've got Morrow and Flauget, who are great scorers as well, and you're a freshman, so not necessarily going to be the primary option. But she can get it going, and she was incredibly efficient. She had 32 points last night, but she was 5 of 9 from three-point range. Flauget dumped in 21. And then Kaylin Gilbert is starting to kind of come on off the bench as maybe an unsung hero. I'm not claiming to be an expert on the personnel on the women's team, especially not in November and early December. But I was aware of what their starting lineup was going to look like, and I didn't necessarily expect a lot from Kaylin Gilbert. And she played 34 minutes last night and really did a good job. Samaya Smith, didn't score in 15 minutes, and LSU kind of took her out of the game and went very small. And that's where Gilbert came in to play with Morrow and Michaela and Flauget and Cheyenne Day Wilson. And like that's not something Kim loves to do, to go small. She likes to have a front court presence. But let's be real, like you get behind, you got to play pressure defense. You got to run a little bit. You got to move things quickly, and you got to compromise some things around the rim. And LSU played small, and they were able to cut it down, and they were able to get the bucket. They had a great win down in the Bahamas at the gun, and they had a great compromise win here. And I don't think anybody's going to mistake this LSU team for being as talented as the last two. They're not, but they're good, and they're winning some late games, which is great for this team. You've seen some LSU teams go through non-conference without being tested, and some of that I think is by design, but I think some of it can be detrimental when you get into the SEC, which is obviously the best league in the country. I like the fact that this team has responded a little bit. It's early. They're going to have some bumps in the road. I don't think they're quite as good as the last two teams, but look, they're ranked 5th in the country, and they've got some proven studs. Morrow, Michaela, and Flauget are as tough a 3 players to defend as you'll find. It's just the rest of that group has got to come together and pack a little bit more punch. So, look, they scored 94 points in an overtime game last night. That's plenty of scoring. And it was a great win against a Stanford team that came in here 7-1. So, Kim Mulkey's team moves to 10-0. And let's see what's next for them. I will check that here because I don't know. I don't even know what's after Sunday for the men. But Grambling coming up on Sunday, 2:00 up in Shreveport, up there in the 318. Probably a Kim Mulkey special there to get Michaela back home to play in front of her native Bossier crowd. So we'll set aside for Sports Center. We got a lot to get to in hour number 2. I got to preview LSU Florida Gulf Coast. We got to preview Saints and Giants. Also, championship weekend is coming up. Give you my thoughts on Georgia, Texas, and the rest of those games as well. So don't go anywhere. Our Friday show is brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Come back after Sports Center. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. They're custom. What's better than custom? Everybody wants custom these days, and David Duvall can specify his design to exactly what you need. If you need extra space for XYZ in your closet, maybe you got to wear a suit every day, you don't quite have enough room for that. Maybe you've got a growing family and you're going to move a closet and change that because you've got a new kid moving one room because a newborn's coming in. All kinds of things can lead to issues that need new closet space. David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets are happy to do that for you. It starts with a free consultation. That doesn't cost you anything. Then you can start understanding what your process is going to be like, and he'll walk you through it every step of the way. David's been at this for 3 decades. He knows what he's doing. He can help you with it. If you want to see pictures of their great work, go to OneBathAndClosets.com. One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com.